Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and my international brothers and sisters around the world, welcome to the third installment of NutraNews. NutraNews, where we come at you with that trademarked low budget, it's not really trademarked, low budget, not the greatest light quality and not the greatest sound quality, and no real script to speak of, and no staff, but we're still bringing you nutrition news because it's that important. It's that important. Even with just a skeleton YouTube setup, nutrition news is that important, and I am that passionate about bringing it to you. So let's get right to the greatest headline that I have read this week. This filled me with joy as a nutritionist, as somebody who has been trained in the ways of health and wellness. I like to refer to it as the good side of the force. I don't actually. That's just a thing I just did. Anyway, getting back to things that matter. This comes to us from IFL Science. Thank you, IFL Science. I absolutely love following you on Facebook. Keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic stuff. This past week actually, I think I saw it. I saw a headline that made me very happy because those who have my degree or a degree similar to, dietitians across this country and across the world, understand that gluten-free diets are not necessary to people who do not have any sort of gluten intolerance. That to this point in time, no proven health benefits have been shown when people without a gluten intolerance consume a gluten-free or gluten-light diet. Zero health benefits, but there have been studies that show negative implications of the gluten-free diet. And the latest one is that a study finds a link between gluten-free diet and type 2 diabetes risk. Why? Well, let's find out. So this study was done at Harvard University and was presented at a meeting of the American Heart Association in Portland, and it reviewed 30 years worth of medical data from 200,000 participants and found that those who limited their gluten intake or avoided it completely actually had a 13% higher chance of developing type 2 diabetes. Let's read that one more time for all of the gluten-free people who are screaming right now that I'm wrong. The major study from Harvard University, which was presented at a meeting of the American Heart Association in Portland, reviewed 30 years worth of medical data from over 200,000 participants, 200,000 participants, and found that those who limited their gluten intake or avoided it completely had a 13% higher chance of developing type 2 diabetes. The purpose of this study, according to Dr. Gang Zhong of Harvard School of Public Health, was to find out if gluten consumption actually had negative health implications for those who don't have a reason to avoid gluten. For those of us who don't have celiac or Crohn's disease, are there any negative health impacts related to consumption of gluten? And in their study of determining that, they actually determined that gluten-free or gluten-light diets are the ones who cause the worst health outcomes, and that a varied diet is still the champion of diets. Now, for those of you who have been living under a rock for the last 15 years, welcome. This is YouTube, and gluten is a thing that a lot of people, especially on the western coast, are pretty concerned about. They're very concerned about it. What are they concerned about exactly? It's a protein that is found in wheat, rye, barley, and other related grains. And it is the protein that gives baked goods that chewy texture and that elasticity and what makes everything taste good. If you take the gluten out, you can notice that the gluten's not there. Except for those who are really committed to their gluten-free diets, nobody has ever taken a bite of a gluten-free anything and said, That tastes just as good as with the gluten. I can't tell that it's gone. Nobody does that. None of us who enjoy our varied diets have ever said those words. And if we did, it was only to make people who are gluten-free feel better about their diets, their dietary choice. The study also used data from the Nurse Health Study, where 199,794 people answered food-related questions every 2 to 4 years. They found that the participants consumed on average 6 to 7 grams of gluten a day. Over the 30-year follow-up period, 15,942 cases of type 2 diabetes had been diagnosed. The study found that those who had a higher intake of gluten, up to 12 grams a day of that terrible stuff that has not been proven to be terrible for you, were less likely to develop type 2 diabetes. So consumption of 12 grams a day or more, it gives you a better chance of reducing your risk of type 2 diabetes. Those who ate less gluten also had a lower cereal fiber intake, and as we all know, or as most of us know, as many of us know, fiber is that wonderful substance that is quite instrumental in preventing type 2 diabetes. Excuse me. So, coming towards an end here, the best case scenario for any of us who are not gluten intolerant, gluten sensitive, is to consume a varied diet. I strongly recommend the Mediterranean style diet. It's time-tested, proven time and time again to be the best diet known to man at this point in time. There's nothing else out there that is as complete and as healthy and promotes longevity as well as the Mediterranean diet. It's the way to go. It's the way to go. Go away with paleo, go away with gluten-free. The Mediterranean diet is where it's at. Pardon me. I have a little bit of a weird congestion thing going. The weather in this part of the country has been rather odd. At one point we were enjoying the 70s in the middle of February, and now all of a sudden, here on March 16th, it's not even 40 degrees out. And my body is responding in like, I don't have a cold necessarily, but I do have some congestion going on. And I apologize if congestion offends you. Now, one thing that is common, and I'll make this really the end piece, one thing that is very common, and I hear this constantly from people who have little to no nutrition education, that they have self-diagnosed that they are gluten sensitive, that they did like a 1 week thing where they just tried, like week after week, they tried eliminating one thing or another thing to see what was giving them an upset stomach or what was just making them feel just not as up to snuff as they typically think they should feel. And that way is the wrong way to go. That way is absolutely the wrong way to go. Why is it the wrong way to go? Well, first off, it can lead to that gluten-free or gluten-light diet, which will lead you down the dark path to type 2 diabetes. And as a second note, as a second reason, if you test yourself and you self-diagnose yourself and you truly do have a gluten intolerance, you need to have that diagnosed by a doctor. You need to have that diagnosed by a dietitian. You need to have that diagnosed by somebody who actually has the tools and the knowledge and the know-how to diagnose that sort of disorder, because that is very important. If you really are gluten intolerant or you're gluten sensitive, consuming anything with gluten in it could be quite detrimental to your health. You need to have that checked out by medical professionals and not self-diagnose it, because if you just go self-diagnosing and you try to follow a gluten-free diet, you may accidentally, down the road, or intentionally, come into contact with too much gluten, and you could suffer very negative health impacts from just relying on a self-diagnosis. So please, if you do suspect that you're gluten intolerant, have that checked out by a medical professional as soon as you can. For the rest of you who think that gluten just gives you a little bit of an upset tummy, take it like a champion. Eat your bowl of Wheaties. Whatever wheat product is good for you, work some more gluten into your diet, because that protein and all that fiber really does protect against the sugars that are inherent in these carbohydrates, and helps to protect against the rapid absorption of those sugars, and goes a long way to preventing type 2 diabetes. And then, once you crack the type 2 diabetes, there's a whole host of other nutrition-related diseases and ailments just waiting to become a part of your life after you've achieved the type 2 diabetes. Please don't go down that path. If you think that you're sensitive, please go see a doctor. I am Jacob Lehman. That has been the latest installment of NutraNews. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please do me a favor. Like this video, share, subscribe, all that rigmarole. Tweet it to your friends, put it on the Facebook. I would appreciate anything you do to help this channel grow a little bit in its success and viewership. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And stay tuned next week for another edition of NutraNews. Bye-bye.